So it seems like Christmas has come early with a new season, but new problems, as well as new enemies, and that was the caption as 4Starz officially released the first look images for season 2, and it has been a long time coming. Tommy Egan is back, and that's also the official title for episode 1, Tommy's back. Unfortunately, there isn't a synopsis to go with it, but I'm sure that's something that will be released in due course the closer we get to September the 1st, along with more images and teasers. But these images should get everybody hyped for the long-awaited season 2 of Force. We've got some old characters returning, and we're going to be introduced to some pretty heavy hitters in terms of the Mexican cartel with Miguel Garcia. We've also got Shanti Showstopper page. But before we get into breaking down these images, here's a reminder of the synopsis and what we can expect for season 2, which will give us some more background and context to these images. Tommy Egan is on a mission to avenge the death of Liliana, and with the Flynn organization weakened, he's more determined than ever to take over the Chicago drug world. But with the CBI split down the middle, Tommy and Diamond first must maintain the edge over Jenard. As a fractions feud in the streets, Tommy capitalizes on another rivalry between the Serbs and Miguel Garcia. After setting off a chain reaction of violence in pursuit of his ambition, Tommy must race to stay ahead of the men who are coming for what's theirs, a federal task force closing ranks, and a sadistic supplier with a direct line to the cartel. Tommy's also going to be torn by the promise of a second chance with his blood family, and he must decide what he's willing to sacrifice to finally ascend the throne of a kingpin. Now, these images do paint the picture of the synopsis of Tommy and Diamond trying to maintain the advantage over Jenard, with the CBI split down the middle, the introduction of the most formidable drug lord in Chicago, with Tommy in the thick of the action. His partnership with Diamond is going to be integral to the storyline in season 2, especially because we saw Tommy struggling to come to terms with the death of Ghost in season 1 of Force. At times, we had Tommy refer to Ghost as his brother and his business partner, but having to correct himself by saying former partner, and you could definitely tell Ghost's death is still lingering around in his mind, along with the death of Lakeisha and others. But one thing we have to mention going into season 2, the events that took place at the end of Ghost season 3 is between Force seasons 1 and 2, so Tommy has already been to New York and back. Now, whether we hear anything in a conversation with Diamond with him telling him he handled his business back in New York is yet to be seen, but I do believe that's where the timeline sits. Now, this business relationship with Diamond comes at a perfect time after everything that happened with Ghost and more recently Liliana. In Diamond, he has someone who shares his vision. They're both very much old school, which is why they got along instantly. And so I think we should expect much of the same in season 2. Although one thing I do have to mention is, especially after rewatching Power recently, as with any drug organization, there will be disagreements and there will be different ideologies of how people want to do business. In season 1, we saw Tommy operating the same way as he always does, but this is Chicago. And I don't think Tommy will always get his way, but having Diamond by his side who's Chicago born and bred will definitely make them one formidable team. They had each other's backs in season 1 and it seems like they're going to be handling business and street wars together. Now, something that pushed Diamond into the path of Tommy was Jenard, and as per the synopsis, we've got the CBI brothers face to face in a conversation. Now, let's not forget that Jenard was ready to take his brother out in order to take back control over the CBI, an organization he believed he should have been the leader of after he held it down while Diamond was in prison. We then saw Diamond holding a gun to Jenard, but sparing his brother's life, so there is a lot of bad blood between them, but this is power, and I always say expect the unexpected, especially in a drug game where you can't take one eye off the streets, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the brothers having to work together and having to put their differences aside. At times in Power, that's what Ghost and Tommy had to do under Felipe Lobos, Milan, and Jason Michich, even though they had different visions and ways of doing business. But can Diamond trust Jenard? I definitely don't think so. If they have to work together, Diamond will definitely have his head on a swivel, and I'm sure Tommy will be there to remind him, because they need to maintain the edge over Jenard. This is Miguel Garcia, who's a mean, violent, and domineering alpha male. He's never been in a long-term relationship because he lives to make money, but will do anything to protect the ones he loves. Now, one thing that always got in the way of business for Ghost and Tommy back in the day was their love life. On one hand, we had Ghost who rekindled his relationship with Angela Valdez, who turned out to be a federal prosecutor, and then there was Tommy and Holly, who Ghost tried to get rid of. For Miguel Garcia, it seems like he doesn't have that problem. He's all about business. And linking this back to the synopsis, Tommy and Diamond are trying to maintain the edge over Jenard, and it seems that they're both in talks with Miguel Garcia. Now, what stands Tommy in good stead with Miguel Garcia is the fact that they have a long-standing rivalry with the Serbs, who struck a deal with Jenard towards the end of season 1. The Serbs were a big problem for Tommy, and even though they shook hands on a deal, Merkovich went back on his word. So we have Tommy face to face with Miguel Garcia, who's a Mexican drug lord. Now, we also have to remember Tommy and Diamond are no longer fucking with Dahlia, so they need to find a new connect, and the only logical answer to Tommy and Diamond's problems is Miguel Garcia. but Jenard also seems like he's trying to weasel his way in by making a deal. So something I wouldn't be surprised to see is coming across a scenario where they all end up working beneath Miguel Garcia, as we see Tommy back in the barbershop, which is the hub of the CBI. He's got his hands up, no doubt, guns pointed in his direction from possibly Jenard and his crew, but maybe he's here to strike a deal because that's the only way to move forward with Miguel Garcia. But expect there to be a lot of death, violence and betrayal when it comes to these business relationships. As we all know from Power with Felipe Lobos, the Mexican cartel do not play games, and I actually wonder if there are any references to Felipe Lobos or if this causes Tommy any problems, because after all, Tommy and Ghost were the ones who came together to kill Felipe Lobos. Season 1 also had a lot of Easter eggs which dated back to the early years of Power, with Liliana returning as well as Tatiana. So with Gary Lennon now being the showrunner of Force, who's a Power OG, a lot of the cast and crew have promised to bring back the old Power back to our screens. So with this in mind, I wouldn't be surprised to see more Easter eggs and nods to Power. Now, with Jenard in this image is Shanti's Showstopper Paige. She's a prize ex-professional boxer that now runs her own gym. She's fearless and ambitious, a dangerous combination, and I do have to agree, ambition in Power comes with a price. We've seen countless of characters trying to achieve their long life dreams, but in doing so, they've hurt friends, family, as well as business associates. It also seems like she might be striking up a romance with Jenard, and I am actually intrigued to see where the story goes with Shanti and Jenard. Does Jenard keep his head on his shoulders and in the game, or will he be distracted by Shanti's charm? Could she even prove to be a valuable asset to his organization, because he has lost a lot of soldiers through death and the CBI being split down the middle? These are all the questions I do think we should be asking going into season 2, because we know nothing about Shanti apart from what we've read through her character description, so let's see what else is in store for Shanti's Showstopper Paige. Now, Walter fucking Flynn, the head of the Flynn family, one of Tommy's rivals in season 1, and someone who will probably end up being a problem in season 2. We've got them face to face in a conversation with Uncle Paulie in the background, but these meetings with Walter Flynn in season 1 didn't exactly go to plan. Tommy came to him with a proposition with Diamond, but Walter Flynn threw his toys at the pram and threw insult after insult. But Walter Flynn actually did take a liking to Tommy and offered him a role in his organization, something which Tommy was of course never going to be down with, because Tommy's here to create his own legacy, not to work with someone like Walter Flynn. Now, what brings them back together after the standoff at the end of season 1? Who knows? But one thing that has always stuck in the back of my mind is Tommy's history and backstory. Why was Kate Egan so hell-bent in keeping Tommy away from his grandmother? And is there a connection to Walter Flynn? Unfortunately, Tommy's grandmother died, and therefore Tommy couldn't really get any information. But I do feel like there's hidden secrets and a backstory that does need to be revealed when it comes to Kate Egan, Tommy, and JP. Kate kept these secrets from Tommy for a reason, and it is going to be intriguing to see when she comes over to Chicago, which was an Easter egg towards the end of season 3 of Ghost. She'd pretty much packed up a house, most likely because she wants to move closer to be with Tommy, JP, and her grandson D-Mac. So this story surrounding Tommy and Walter Flynn I do think is one to keep an eye on. Now, other than these images, they are going to be bringing back some old Power vibes with a new look task force led by AUSA Stacey Marks, and Tommy definitely has to keep his head on a swivel in Chicago. He's supposed to be dead in New York, and they referenced him to being a ghost towards season 1, but when and if they connect the dots to who he really is, I wonder if this brings over a familiar face, Blanca Rodriguez. So that's another storyline we do need to bear in mind based on the synopsis, and based on the crossover we got at the end of season 1 of Force. But drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you make of the first look images for season 2 of Force. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.